Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for Illawarra Health Professionals Unite for Gaza. An evening where we come together as health professionals, community members, allies, and advocates. We are united not only by our roles and identities, but by our shared humanity. Our aim is simple: to bear witness, raise our voices, and act in solidarity with the people in Gaza. We want to make it clear that this evening or this event is not sponsored by any organization. It's not a fundraiser. It was simply brought together by some incredible individuals from our community who felt the urgency to act and to create a safe space for truth, solidarity, and connection. Thank you. To begin this evening in the spirit of respect and recognition, we'd like to invite Auntie Barbara Nicholson, a local Wadi Wadi elder, to deliver the welcome to the country. Please welcome to the stage.
Oh, wow, look at all of you. Good evening. And to the organisers, once again, it's a privilege to be asked to come here and deliver a cultural welcome on country. I'm Auntie Barb Nicholson. I'm a Wadi Wadi woman. This is Wadi Wadi country. Wadi Wadi country has been here since time immemorial, and I'd want to pay respect to the sacred land that we live on, even though it's built on and mined and logged and goodness knows what, it's still sacred. As Aboriginal people, we understand that the spirit of every living thing is in the land, and you can't take the spirit out of the land. Ergo, it's our sacred land. Pay respect to elders past and present, and to Aboriginal people, if there's others in the room, I acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge all the wonderful people in this room, the organisers from the Women's Centre. I'm not going to name you all because I don't know everyone's name. I want to acknowledge all the Palestinian people here. Can I just say, when I'm really old, I really am old, and when I was a kid, the school atlas had Palestine was the whole of that area that is now known as Israel. And I wish I still had that map. It's long gone, but I'm sure somewhere along the way it could be found. So I've never known anything. I've only ever known that place as Palestine. And I think, wow, what else do I know? Not very much. I don't pretend to know a lot about everything. I've been a bit of a political animal, but you might appreciate that we have our own battles here in this country with the colonisation and the impact of that is still being felt very hard to this day. And I've been very proactive in all of the issues around that. What do I know? Not a lot. I know what my heart says, and my heart says wrong. There's a wrong there, and I wish I wasn't so old, and I wish I had the energy to get out there and be upfront. I haven't got that, but I've got my heart, and that's what matters. Can I pay particular respect to the people who are the boots on the ground in Gaza, and some of them here, and I think they deserve a special thank you, yeah? I see the news every night. I watch Al Jazeera faithfully because the rest is all crap. So, and I just can't watch anymore. Sometimes I'm just full up and I can't take it anymore. To see all those beautiful, innocent people, those dear little children, and to see the terror that is going on there, and the world is not doing anything about it. And the world needs to hang its head in shame, its collective head, and get up off its butt and do something. And that's what's in my heart, do something. But, you know, I'm probably straying away from a cultural welcome. It's funny that. Give an activist a microphone. Okay, but can I say, every one of you in my book is very, very welcome on Wadi Wadi country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Auntie Barb, for that powerful and grounding welcome to country. And from an Indigenous Palestinian woman to an Indigenous woman from Wadi Wadi country, we really appreciate your solidarity. And before we go further, I'm so honoured to be co-hosting this evening with my dear friend and advocate, Yusra.
And I'm just as honoured to be here with inspiring Safa. Together we'll be guiding you through tonight's program, an evening of truth, unity, and most importantly, action.
We also want to acknowledge the warm cups many of you are holding or have held tonight. The lentil soup was lovingly cooked and served by some amazing women from our community. This soup isn't just nourishment, it's a symbol.
I have been told by Dr. Ayman Al-Attar, who's one of the speakers tonight, that in Gaza, even in the face of siege and starvation, families offer this humble dish to visiting health workers as a gesture of deep gratitude, resistance, and care. So tonight, as you sip, know that it carries with it the strength, generosity, and unbreakable spirit of the Palestinian people.
Just a few housekeeping. Toilets, including accessible toilet, is to your right. We expect this event to run for at least 2 hours, and we'll have around 30 minutes at the end for questions and answers. So please keep your reflections or hold your reflections as you listen tonight, and keep those questions in mind for question and answer time.
And finally, a gentle content warning. Tonight's event includes confronting images and stories that reflect the real life in Gaza and the painful reality in Gaza. If at any point you feel overwhelmed or feel free to step out and or speak to one of us. We're here to help hold this place safely together. So to open our evening and ground us in the reality that has brought us all here tonight, we'll now share a short video.
The devastation was astonishing. I certainly had never seen anything like what we saw there. Al-Shifa was the most important hospital in Gaza. It's where the most complicated cases get referred. Harara, who was running the emergency department there, he took me through the main hospital complex. And Harara has on his phone photographs of what the department had looked like. You just couldn't believe the contrast. I mean, on his phone, it looks like any American hospital. It looks like the hospital where I trained. On the grounds behind the main building of the hospital, there was a makeshift graveyard. I saw this at pretty much every hospital I visited in Gaza. There would be nowhere to put the patients who were dying. And so they would just bury them in the courtyards, wherever they could find space. In Gaza, there wasn't space, there wasn't personnel, there weren't resources, there weren't medications. There just wasn't enough. There were no hospital gowns at Al-Aqsa Hospital. There just wasn't the capacity in the healthcare system, or the resources, or enough surgeons, or enough sterile gauze. Yeah, this was Indonesian hospital. Sultan was the director of the hospital, a cardiologist, and he sort of walked me through one of the most disturbing discoveries that he made. He took me up into the ICU and showed me a number of different pieces of medical equipment, and all of them seemed to have a bullet hole in the screen. The soldiers? He was like, I don't understand. And I get that. I also was struggling to understand. This didn't seem like collateral damage to me. These were specific pieces of medical equipment that seemed to have been systematically disabled. And I had a hard time trying to think of a way that this would be addressing a military threat, because this is equipment that's just used to take care of patients and nothing more. You can't weaponize a dialysis machine. I worry about the safety of people I know, friends, American healthcare workers and physicians who are still there, who are still going. And then also the people that we worked alongside, Palestinian healthcare workers. It almost feels like a nightmare that you've woken up from. But for the people who are there living it, there is no waking up. They can't escape it. That is just their life.
فاروق طلعتوهم من مكانهم الحاج فيش فيه نفس خالص وين هو مبهدل الحاج ولا قطعة واحدة وين هو الحاج وجهه متشوه الحجة
shot by snipers.
Definitively. I have 2 children that I have photographs of that were shot so perfectly in the chest I couldn't put my stethoscope over their heart more accurately, and directly on the side of the head in the same child. No toddler gets shot twice by mistake by the world's best sniper. And they're dead center shots. All of the disasters I've seen combined, 40 mission trips, 30 years, ground zero, earthquakes, all of that combined doesn't equal the level of carnage that I saw against civilians in just my first week in Gaza.
And when you say civilians, is it mostly children?
Almost exclusively children. I've never seen that before. Never seen that. I've seen more incinerated children than I've ever seen in my entire life combined. I've seen more shredded children in just the first week.
Shredded.
Shredded.
This is the third little guy that I've done today. He's got a blast injury to his legs. So the right one we've had to shorten because he's lost some bone, and the left one he's got a huge hole in. So he's number 3. The little guy behind him, he's a 40% burn. He was number 2, and my first little girl, she was under a year old, and she had a burn to her hand. I've ever been to Gaza, and I've been coming to Gaza since 2019, and I've never seen the situation as bad as it is now. We are facing a humanitarian crisis here. Yes. We are seeing more and more injured patients than we've ever seen before, and we have very little resources to help them. We've had a blockade to all medical equipment since the 2nd of May, and we are running out of vital supplies. We are running out of basic things like blades for scalpels, gloves, gauze, solutions to clean the skin with. It's absolutely dire situation, and then coupled with that, the population have been starved since the 2nd of March. So we are seeing a population that does not have the reserves to cope with the sort of injuries that are being inflicted on them. They're malnourished, they don't have the vital nutrients, vitamins and minerals that they need to heal. They can't fight the infections that they are suffering from. And overall, we are seeing a huge number of patients that would otherwise not die in front of us. It has to stop. It is a humanitarian crisis. We need an end to the blockade. We need a ceasefire. We need more food, more aid, more people to come and help and work here, and we need to be able to work here.
Israel has denied aid from being distributed in Gaza for the last 11 weeks. 2 million people on the brink of famine. What happens over these next couple of days will be critical for the people of Gaza, where we're already starting to see some of the most vulnerable children and the elderly die of chronic malnutrition.
How many Australians did you find feel that it is unjustifiable what we're seeing happen?
Well, the polling that we undertook included a sample of Australians, and that found that 82% believe that it is unjustifiable for Israel to be denying aid to the people of Gaza, and the majority want to see the Australian government take action to ensure aid flows to people in Gaza. I think what's also interesting about the polling is that the majority of those who want to see the Albanese government take action are Labor voters. So this is a pretty clear message to the government that the status quo in terms of our policy in relation to Israel is not enough.
So this piece captured just a glimpse of what's happening right now in Gaza, the destruction, the resilience, and the urgent call for global solidarity. Now, so these are lives, these are families, these are colleagues, these are patients, these are health workers, people just like us. Okay, we're incredibly honored to have with us tonight a panel of outstanding individuals, people who have witnessed the situation in Gaza firsthand, who carry deep expertise and who speak from the heart.
Each of them brings a unique perspective, whether from their work on the ground, their advocacy, or their medical and humanitarian experience. Together, they will help us better understand the crisis and what we, as health professionals and community members, can do in response.
So let's begin by introducing Dr. Ayman Al-Attar. Dr. Ayman is an emergency consultant based here in the Illawarra, born in Egypt. He graduated from Cairo University in 1999, and he specialized in critical care medicine, becoming an ICU specialist in 2006. He migrated to Australia in 2008, where he pursued his passion for emergency medicine. His deep commitment to his profession, guided by strong ethics and humanitarian values, led him to take the risk of volunteering in Gaza, where he not only treated patients, but also mentored and trained local emergency staff, working under incredibly difficult conditions. Dr. Ayman returned to Australia just a few weeks ago, and we are truly privileged to have him with us this evening. Please welcome Dr. Ayman Al-Attar.
I'm actually very excited about our next speaker. I feel like he's my younger brother. His name is Dr. Mohammed Mustafa. Dr. Mohammed is a British-Australian emergency physician trainee of Palestinian heritage. He is also known as Beast from the Middle East on Instagram. That's his Insta handle. Look him up. I follow. He has been on 2 medical missions to Gaza. The second mission occurred during when the ceasefire broke in March. The event went viral, bringing the reality of the emergency department to the world. He is on a mission to build a children's hospital in Gaza and seeking endorsement by the Australian government. His message is clear: save Gaza's children. Hospitals and healthcare workers are not a target. Please welcome Dr. Mohammed Mustafa. I'm also very excited about our next speaker. One of my very good friends now, since this genocide began. Sally Stevenson is the Executive Director of the Illawarra Women's Health Centre and has a background in community development, public health and emergency medicine, humanitarian assistance. Having worked in a number of conflict and natural disaster zones around the world, most recently in Gaza last October as emergency coordinator for, I'm going to say this wrong, Médecins Sans Frontières. She is a recent Wollongong Citizen of the Year and became a member of the Order of Australia in 2014 for her international humanitarian and community work. Please make Sally welcome.
Okay, our next speaker is Dr. Aziz Biamani, a highly respected orthopedic surgeon with a special interest in all aspects of hip and knee surgery. Beyond his clinic work, he has demonstrated a strong commitment to humanitarian service. This time, last year, Dr. Aziz volunteered in Gaza, offering his skills in incredibly challenging conditions. Upon his return, he shared his powerful first-hand experiences at a Wollongong Friends of Palestine rally, offering testimony that left a lasting impact on our local community. We are honored to have you today. Dr. Aziz, welcome to the stage. All right, our final panelist this evening is Asala Saraya. Asala is a primary and secondary school counselor, social worker, social justice, public speaker, and storyteller. Having graduated from a Bachelor of Social Work with first-class honors from the University of Sydney, Asala is currently completing the PhD at University of Sydney. Asala's connection to her homeland and Palestinian identity fuel her human rights activism, for which she uses in writing, campaigning, educating, and fundraising to advocate for Palestinians, refugees, and indigenous communities' human rights. She is also the founder and director of Hawiyati, which is a digital grassroots platform that shares the Palestinian experience through multiple mediums and connects people seeking the shared experiences and stories of Palestinians in the diaspora. Asala has been a powerful and consistent voice for Palestine, speaking at rallies and events across Sydney and standing firmly for justice and liberation. Please welcome Asala Sayara.
With our panelists now with us on stage, we're ready to begin the first part of our discussion.
Guiding this conversation is our host for the evening, Kim Sattler, a very good friend of mine, a secular anti-Zionist Jew, former union official, domestic violence worker, and longtime political activist. Kim is a committed advocate for human rights, social justice, and refugee rights. Please welcome Kim Sattler.
Thank you. I welcome everyone. I thank you for coming out in the middle of a working week, and I thank our doctors and our other panellists for actually making yourselves available. We actually pulled this event together in how many days? 10 days. So a lot of us who are the organisers of this forum and the previous forum have only known each other since October 7. Well, Safra and I knew us online during COVID, but we've worked together and been involved in the rallies and other activities like lobbying politicians, a very tiring exercise lately. And we've come together to actually create other events so that the wider community becomes better informed about Palestine. So I have got some questions I'd like to ask each panellist, and I'd like you to share some of your personal stories about what took you to Palestine in the first place. So I might start with Dr. Ayman. What made you go to Palestine?
Thanks for having me. So the main driver for me to go to Gaza was the internal question that I keep asking myself, and I'm sure most of you guys have the same question. What else we can do to help? Yeah. What else I can do more? And like going back 6 months ago, I was like thinking that I probably did my best attending demonstrations, marching behind Asala many times, week after week, attending vigils, being active on either social media or with people I know, and maybe doing some donations, and most of us done this. And then after a year of this war/genocide, I felt like, okay, what else I can do, because it seemed like nothing is, or at least very slow progress. So what else we can do? So people like Dr. Aziz, for example, like going to Gaza before us and inspiring us that, as health professionals, probably there's something else we can do. So by then I applied, I was already applied for many missions and many organizations, and I reached the level that, okay, no one is giving us any feedback, and I had to do like more active work, which organization actually managed to get people to Gaza, and I had a handful of names, and I contacted them. They said, okay, we're happy to help you, but there's still the chance is probably still less than 1%, and you have to be patient with us. And so that's that's the drive that should be in us. And again, I mean, this is the only way you can overcome despair and the fear,
Powerlessness,
exactly, which is actually started to hit us probably 6 months ago. And again, I can give lots of examples. I mean, being here, you guys here today, means you made this, you had this question and you answered this question. That I'll do something every day, even if I do the same thing is a bonus. Is something in towards the right path. Someone like. Again, Mohammed Mustafa, again, going to Gaza and still came back and wants to do this extra thing, going and lobbying in Canberra, something very, difficult to lobby with the politicians and stuff. Someone like Ziad Bastouni with us today, like becoming a politician himself. So again, I think that's the answer for your question is you need to keep this internal question. What else I can do every day to help the people there who are in desperate need for everything? And this video is as emotional and as heartbreaking it is. Being there, can tell you that it's just a small summary of what they're going through.
Yep. Thank you. What about you, Dr. Mo? What took you to Gaza in the first mission?
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for having me here. We just did a long drive from Canberra and we were late, so sorry about that. Look, there's a couple of reasons why I went to Gaza. First of all, I actually am from Gaza. My dad was born in Gaza. He was kicked out of Gaza as a kid and we grew up as refugees. So I always wanted to go home and I'd never been able to go home, and then lo and behold, I had an opportunity to go during the war. And so it was kind of a bittersweet moment for me. The other thing that I really wanted to go to Gaza was, I mean, you could all see the images in Gaza and what was happening in Gaza. But I think, you could also see the resilience of the people in Gaza. You could see the way that they were holding their dead children and saying, Alhamdulillah, and nodding their heads and saying they'll be okay. And, to me, I felt like I want to be a part of this. I want to be there with these people in this historic moment, because we are witnessing history right now in Gaza. Right now, there's an awakening around the world. I've never seen more pro-Palestinian movements. I've never seen more kafiyas in my life. This might happen. This might happen in our lifetime. We might see a free Palestine. And I didn't want to leave those people behind. I didn't want them to suffer this journey alone. And I didn't feel it was fair for them to pay the price by themselves for a free Palestine. The whole world's let down Palestine for 75 years. First and foremost, the Arab nations around them. And it's down to us to do something to help. And I just wanted to be there with them. I didn't want them to suffer on their own, And for me, it wasn't just about working and going there to help. It was everything. I wanted to soak up everything. I would walk, which we're not allowed to. I'd walk to and from the hospital to the market and get falafel sandwiches. I was right there in the marketplace. There'd be bombs going off in the thing, and I'd have to run. I just lived my life like a Ghazawi for a few days, a few weeks. And I lived amongst them, and it changed me. And, my mission when I went to Gaza was to tell the story of the people in Gaza, was to tell my people's story. Western journalists aren't allowed in. And, I got told I wasn't allowed to record so many times by so many people. They said to me, stop recording. You're putting yourself in danger. You're putting the mission in danger. They said, that's not the rules. The rules are you're not allowed to video what's going on in the hospital. And I kept telling them, I remember when this one, I won't mention whose name it was, but it was another international doctor from another organization, and they went, you can't film in the ED. You can't film in the ER, American accent. And she said, that's not the rules. And I stood in the middle, and there was dead people everywhere and children. And I said, is this the rules? Are these the rules that we're playing by? And, that's the point in which it really clicked for me. I don't care anymore. These people aren't playing by the rules. Why should I play by the rules? And what I think is... And, it takes somebody to make the first move. And, now, when you look at the videos coming out of Gaza, how many doctors do you see now doing video diaries in Gaza? It wasn't a thing before. They maybe do interviews, but they wouldn't do video diaries. And I think we broke down that barrier. I think we showed people that it's okay to record, that you're not just a doctor when you go there, you're also a journalist when you go there, because journalists aren't allowed in. You have to bear witness. And there's an Australian doctor called Jeremy Hicks, and he's been to Gaza twice. An Australian doctor, he's with me in Perth. And, you know, I remember when I came back and, you know, the only people that will understand Gaza are people that have been to Gaza and have experienced what's going on. They'll only know what the horror is like. And I remember talking to Jeremy, and, you know, I was upset because I said, you know, I'm only a trainee. Some of these doctors that go, like Dr. Ayman here, he's an ICU consultant and an emergency consultant. You know, these are leaders in their fields. And I said, I'm just a trainee. Who am I? You know what I mean? I'm nobody. And he said to me, you know, he said, Mo, he said, you know, half the time I just felt like I was a witness. I wasn't even a doctor. I was just there to witness what was going on. And that lit an idea in my head that, you know what, if I'm going to be a witness, I might as well be the best witness there is and record and show the world what's going on. And that's what we did. So, you know, the reason why I went to Gaza was because this is my home, and I wanted to show the world who we are as Palestinians, and I wanted to show our story, and I wanted to help them. So, yeah, hope that answers the question.
Thank you. So, Dr. Aziz, my orthopaedic surgeon, my bad knees, which I'm well known for, he's caring for them. How about you tell us the story of how hard it was for you once you'd applied, and then the very late notice you got when you finally got approval to go?
Yeah. But before that, can I answer your question
earlier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, for me, I don't have any Palestinian blood or relatives. I wish I did. To me, this is the moral crossroads of our time. This is the Holocaust moment of our time.
Yep.
The difficulty that we have is, how do I face a Gazan child or a Palestinian, or for that matter, an indigenous person who says to me, well, what were you doing when you knew this was happening?
Yeah.
And this is where it's difficult, because we've all got to get up and do something. We can't stay silent. Now, for me, you're right, the difficulty was multifold, but part of it was, as Dr. Mohammed just said, was to bring back evidence. There is no journalist. There's no one else there. So it was for us to be able to, one, eyewitness it and know what was actually going on, but then bring that back, tell their story. Because if you know, all they do is tell you to tell their story. It is incredible. They're not asking you to get them food. They're not asking you to do anything else. They're asking you to tell their story. Because they're assuming that we, with our humanity, will show the same humanity they have, and we won't be able to carry this on, and we will stop this. So for me, that was the reason. How did I manage to go? To be truthful, I had spoken to multiple aid agencies and had told them that I wanted to go pretty much from November onwards. And by about February, March, I was told that that wasn't going to happen. It wasn't possible. MSF told me they weren't going to send anyone because they just had one of the Israeli tanks artillery fire on their safe house. So they felt that it was too unsafe to send anyone. And then it was a Friday night in April, and it was 10 p.m., and I got a phone call saying, Aziz, do you still want to go? And I said, yeah, I still want to go. And they said, well, guess what? Flight's on Wednesday, and you need to do this, this, and this to have your visa and have everything ready to be able to get there. And I won't tell you what happened with the family because that was difficult. Well, the family was all ready to kill me. I had my son who's away, and everyone else was like, you shouldn't be going. And it was the single hardest thing for me to do. I know these people here are more courageous than I was, but I was shit scared. I really made preparations like I wasn't coming back. That was how I was going. But the funny part was I was worried about my patients as well. So I was like, hey, I've got 3 weeks of operating that I've got to cancel. What do I do here? You sure I can't go in 6 weeks? And they said, no. But it actually turned out to be a great blessing, because by having that cancellation of patients, then everyone found out that I was going. And the reason why that was useful, and one of the important things I think, which I hadn't thought of before I left. So one is the bearing witness. But see the other. So one aspect of this is telling the truth, sharing the truth. But the other is that human connection. Because when you hear Muhammad show that video diary, he's one of us. Now they become one of us. And all of a sudden, this changes. Because if I can get you to see the Gazan child as your child, as our child, and if we can work collectively, then we can change this.
Yeah. Gaza. Gaza definitely captures your heart. I went there 15 years ago, and there's not been a month where I've not talked to people in Gaza, and I still talk to them now, and luckily some of them are still alive. So I totally understand that it really captures you, and they are so appreciative of our solidarity and our bearing witness. I just want to jump to Sally, because Sally's also in the last 12 months been to Gaza. So do you want to share with us why you felt inspired to go and relive a former career?
Yeah, that's true. That's what happened. Thank you. Look, I'd have to say pretty much my experience pretty much echoes what everybody has said, and I think that just reflects the humanity that we're feeling around the connection to Palestine. I think it's historic. I think it's moral. But underneath everything, it's a human connection that you can't shy away from once you've seen. So similar to these gentlemen, I had been horrified and continued to bear witness on social media for what was happening since October the 7th. I'd spoken at rallies, I'd organised events with Kim and other friends, but there came a time where you felt, again, what else can I do? And then a very good friend of mine who's here in the audience was one of the lentil people, soup people, was Therese, and she said to me, I'm going to go to Bethlehem University and do what I can from there. And something clicked in my head, and I thought, I used to work for MSF. I started my first mission in 1995. I have very good connections with them still. I have the contacts, I have the experience, I have the time, and I have the privilege to go. Why wouldn't I go, and why shouldn't it be me? And I think that really just galvanised my desire to go and my drive to go, because there was no reason not to. We were seeing a genocide unfolding. This is a moment of history. We will answer to our children. What did we do? And for me, when I was explaining it to my two boys, who are grown up, my children were grown up, that was another reason I was able to go. It really came down to the fact that either you act on your principles or they're worth nothing. And for me, that was the fundamental thing. I can talk all I want about justice and peace and the genocide, but until I used every last thing that I could, and one of those things was my history and my relationship with MSF, then what did it really stand for, and what did I stand for, and what did I want my children to stand for? So that was the reason.
Thank you. Asala, I'd like to jump to you and get you to talk a bit about working with Palestinians that have come back to Australia, and your work around trauma, because this is going to be really critical in the next period of recovery. Yeah.
Sure. Actually, before I begin, I'd also like to acknowledge all Indigenous people here today. I think if I was to really speak about my experience working with children from Gaza, it actually starts from working with children and youth in the West Bank. And it's encompassed in the words of Mahmoud Darwish, who says, أنا من هنا وأنا من هناك ولست هنا ولست هناك. I'm from here and I'm from there, but I'm not here and I'm not there. So when I migrated to Australia at the age of 4, I was born in the city of Bet. لحم, specifically في المستشفى الفرنسية, the French hospital. I grew up knowing that I was Palestinian and that I was connected to a land that was like not any other land, in all due respect to me. So going back home, or when my parents actually decided to take us back home the first time, it was between, do we take the kids back home or purchase a home here? And my parents actually decided, no, we're taking them to Palestine. That first trip, the trauma that I faced in that first trip ignited something in me when I came back to Australia. I felt that I don't belong, my soul does not belong here. Physically, I do. But to get to your answer, I grew up with the privileges. And in reflection of that, I told my parents, if I go back home, I want to go back to volunteer. And that's where the mission started of volunteering in Palestine, taking me to Beit Lahem Aida Youth Centre. I was there as a student social worker. And from that experience, I was exposed to what trauma is. Yeah. That trauma, as a Palestinian, is not post-trauma. It is continuous trauma because the root cause of that trauma still exists. So when I'm here, years after graduating from university and building the experience and knowing that my passion is working with people from a refugee background, I find myself now, oh hey, I'm working with my people. And I can definitely say, and this has been a conversation amongst mental health professionals, that we're not equipped. We've never had clients or people who are still facing that kind of trauma and a genocide, a live-streamed genocide. Trauma does not have a colour. Trauma can exist in every single person's life. And vicarious trauma that we are facing as a result of witnessing that live-streamed genocide is deeply connected to the trauma that the Gazans face. But also, I want to shed light that this type of trauma, the tactics that the Israeli occupation may use in Gaza, are not different to the tactics that are used in the West Bank. So when I'm speaking about clients with trauma, I'm speaking about clients or Palestinians that are from the whole of Palestine, because the pain of Gaza is a pain of Ramallah and Nablus and Al-Khalil, and the freedom of Gaza will be the freedom of the whole of Palestine.
Yep. So I'm just going to throw a question out to all of you. What do you think surprised you the most about Gaza when you were there? Do you want to start, Dr. Heyman?
Look, before going to Gaza, I was, I spoke to some friends who went there, and they told me, nothing can prepare you for what you're going to see. So when they said this, I was like, okay, so let's expect the worst of the worst, and that would be the good baseline. I try to analyze it in my brain. It's going to be like a big war, lots of casualties, something really painful. I have to be looking after people and looking after myself. And I had some strategy, like I'm somehow a bit of pragmatic person. And when I landed there, all these strategies just,
went out the window.
Exactly, because what I saw there is far worse than I expected. And I'm not, again, here to exaggerate or make it difficult for you guys, but it's, again, it's not, this destruction is not a byproduct of a war or military action. this continuous catastrophe is not meant to cause any military goal or a strategy or anything like that. It's and it took me some few days to try to analyze what's going on, and then I can label it. And after labeling, then I'll probably be able to, deal with it. And the only way I would describe it is, it's a big, massive torture machine that is actually running very meticulously and very well planned to cause as much harm to these people and to cause so much collective punishment, all right? And trauma at multiple levels, and it's multi-layered. So one day I was like trying to save a child, and and it's multi-layer issues that will prevent you from doing your job. And I don't think it's a spontaneous kind of, it's well-planned, meticulous plan to destroy livelihood. Yeah. And again, if you escape from a rocket on a building that would kill multiple extended families, I'm saying multiple extended families, then if you escape this, you will be caught in the shrapnels, which are, everyone now saying shrapnels and shazaya because you can't escape. These kind of weapons should not be used in this very condensed kind of population. That if you want to, target someone, how come you kill all these people around? You know that this, there are no walls in Gaza anymore. Even the buildings, there are no walls. So shrapnels will travel kilometers. If you escape this and go to the ED and you're saved in the ED, you will die in the ICU. If you escape the ICU, you will die in house because there's no rehabilitation. And again, if you escape all this, you will starve. Your kids will starve. They will get infections, and they go to the hospital. They don't have any facilities, no basic medicine, and they will die, and they'll not be counted as a direct casualty from this war. And again, if you escape all this, the mental trauma, the mental health trauma that you will get with these bombs day and night, they never, they will never give you one day without bombs, and I don't, and it's to me, it's again calculated, meticulous, like a industrial level kind of harm that happens just thrown on this population. So this what surprised me, that I was expected the worst. I did find much far worse condition, and I started labeling things. This is not open air prison. This is a concentration camp, or even worse. Because in concentration camp, they don't get this machinery of killing and harm on top of them day and night like this. So, yeah, it was really hard.
Dr. Mo, what about your view about what surprised you?
I mean, it's every day in Gaza is a unique experience. Every day there's something crazy that happens. When I was there the first time, I was there actually the day that the 4 Israeli hostages were rescued, and that was the day where there was 1,400 dead and injured that arrived. So you can imagine that mass casualty event. That obviously has a unique experience in itself of what that's like when you're picking up body parts and putting them into corners and trying to work out and identify different bodies. Then you've got, other moments which are, when you meet people. I remember there was, my first full day of the mass casualty event when I was, the first time that I went, we had these children that were brought in. And I think I mentioned this on an ABC radio. And the first blanket that I opened, there was a kid, and pretty much half his head was missing, and his brain matter was all over the blanket. And I remember freezing. And I remember not just freezing, but my hand shaking. Because when you see it on a TV screen, it's one thing. But when you're there and you see this child's body so mutilated, bones sticking out, intestines hanging out, brain matter coming out, and burnt eyes. When you see that, and it's a child, there begins to be this like fear, your heart begins to race, because you think to yourself, what did this child endure to deserve this? What happened here? And then you look around and there's children everywhere on the floor. And I remember, you know, it was a student nurse, because remember, a lot of the healthcare workers have been killed. So, you know, at these hospitals, I'm sure Dr. Ayman will tell you, but they're either very junior doctors or they're students, they're student nurses. And you end up finding yourself that you're actually one of the most senior ones there. And I remember this nurse, the student nurse, she just sat down on the floor and she picked up this child's head and she put it on her lap. And this child was, you know, had an abdominal injury and he was bleeding out, and she just stroked his hair until he died. You know, he died within a couple of minutes. But for me, what surprised me was just that she knew what to do. She knew this was the process, that this child was by himself, his family weren't there, and he was going to die. And while he was there, I picked up the other child and put him on the bed. And this child, I mean, he was something else. He just, you know, he had a massive open wound on his back, and we were trying to assess him. And he kept standing up and he goes, "I'll never leave. They can do whatever they like. I'm still here." And I'm just like, bro, just chill out, man. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you literally, I can see the inside of your lungs here. But he was just so defiant, this child, and there's all these children and this child is so defiant. I've got the video. I think it's up there somewhere. I just remember thinking to myself, subhanAllah, like these people are something else. You've got the humanity of this woman stroking this child's head, and you've got this other child on this bed with all these injuries, still defiant of where he is. And, you know, to me, that symbolizes what it is to be a Palestinian. You live between hope and despair. That's what it is to be a Palestinian. Hope for the future, and despair for the present of what's happening to us. And, you know, it's these moments that really, you know, shaped my view of what it was in Palestine. But, you know, maybe I have a different view of the world and the way that I see things. You know, I analyze a lot and I overthink a lot. And I think the other part of it is I'm just so connected. You know, when a child dies, it affects me because that child looks like me. I look Ghazawi. Do you know? No one believed I was an Australian doctor. They thought I'd stolen the name from someone, you know? You know, because I just look like every other Ghazawi guy there, you know? And I think probably the only reason they probably thought I was Australian is because, like, I always used to bring Tim Tams to the, you know, to the ED. You know, but these are the moments, you know, that really define the Gaza experience. And if you look carefully, you'll see things. You'll see things that really open your eyes to what it is to be Palestinian and what it's like in this struggle. So, you know, was there anything that surprised me or anything like that? I mean, honestly,
everything.
I've got a million stories I can tell you of a million things that happened, because I, unlike many people, I just didn't follow the rules. So, you know, I got to see things that a lot of people didn't see. But maybe another day we can tell.
So I was going to ask you, Dr. Aziz, I think it'll be true of all of you that it changes you forever now. Do you think it also changes how medical professionals look at going into a war zone now? Like, you're talking about breaking the rules, Mo. Every rule in the world's been broken about who can be fired upon, what can be fired upon, and who can be targeted. It must be very difficult and threatening now for medical professionals to think about going into places like Gaza. There's been no rules in this situation. So do you think it will change everything about medical people going into war zones from now?
I think it's like everything they've done so far. I think what I would share with Dr. Latar in that it's the systematic evilness. See, this is thought out. That's the frightening thing. This isn't by accident.
No.
It's not collateral. It's every aspect of life. And yes, it's been taken to another level. But as we've heard, this has been happening for the last 8 decades to various extents. But now it's become completely naked. But the frightening thing for me was, I think I've said it before, where this is a Hunger Games on steroids. And if you remember how the Capitol treats the tributes, right? It's this emotional, mental, physical abuse. It's how do I hurt you more? And that's what I saw. I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared to see mutilated bodies, which I can never tell you, I cannot get out of my head. And I wasn't prepared to see the number of kids, because that was all it was. It was just kids, kids, and more kids. But the frightening part for me was wherever there was a little bit of hope, they would take it away. And they almost purposely gave them hope and then took it away, to what Mo's saying, you know, between hope and despair. The other bit that I didn't expect, and I had no way, because I think of us in COVID when there was not enough toilet paper, or how there was craziness, right?
There's a lot of despair.
The fact that everyone was hungry, everyone I met was dispossessed, no one had a home, yet all of these people were generous, yet all of these people were willing to look after each other and sacrifice something of themselves to help you, when it should have been man eat man, right? It should have been whoever was the strongest, get what you can. But they didn't. And as you said, that's what makes Gaza feel like home, right?
Yeah.
Where the heart is.
Because they know you're really shocked by what you're going to see, and they're almost protecting you before it happens.
But see, I think, again, to your point, what the concern is, if you ask, you know, to go to Gaza now, you have to go for 4 weeks, you need to have some security clearances, you have to take your food, you have to take your water. So they're purposely making it
more
difficult,
yeah.
and making it so that it is more frightening to stand up, so that they help prevent you from going.
I read recently they're actually stopping surgeons, so they'd actually put a ban on surgeons.
Yeah.
Obviously one of the most needed group of people.
Yeah.
Do you think that the imprisonment and the killing of medical staff in Gaza has also prompted a lot more people to stand up and think about going? Like, we know there are 4 prominent heads of hospitals and leading doctors in Gaza who are currently being held for 500 days, some down to 300 days, and some we don't actually know where they are. We don't actually know the actual location.
Yeah.
So do you think the fact that people can be arrested like that just for doing their job, just for leading a hospital, just for actually trying to treat the wounded, is also like a whole new war crime on its own right, really?
So, look, you've got to remember that this is very systemic.
Yeah.
This is from every layer that they come at you from. They kill the great thinkers. They kill the most prominent journalist voices. They kill the best doctors. They destroy the universities. They destroy civil society, the water work plants, the sewerage work plants. This is, I think this is why we're trying to, I'm trying to change the way that we talk about this, because what happens is, I remember when I was there and, literally the hospital grounds were being bombed. And I was, in my room at the time, as the bombs were falling, and I was thinking, oh, yeah, we've got another mass casualty event here. And I was flicking through, and I saw this reel of a Piers Morgan, interview. He loves doing these Palestine versus Israel interviews. And this was one that had just been released that day. And I remember the panel arguing over whether it's a genocide or not a genocide, right? You go over there, there's no more questions left to ask, We need to stop framing this where we start talking about it like whether we can use the G word or not use the G word. You just tell it like it is. They're not even allowing polio vaccines into Gaza. They're not allowing baby formula into Gaza. The children in Gaza haven't been to school for 2 years. The population is starving to death. They are now in cages going to get food. Where have we seen images like that before? Hungry people in cages being shot at. Do you know, that's why, to me, it's unhelpful. The conversations of, do you think it is this or it is that? You know, let's just start the conversation as it is that. I just don't accept anymore whether we have to argue whether it is or it isn't. It's obvious. And if you can't accept that it is, I don't want to have the conversation. You know, I don't have time. People are dying every single day. Kids, you can see them starving to death. Starving to death. You know, these kind of images we thought we would never see again in our lifetime. Children being burnt alive in homes. I think you've seen the image that just came out yesterday or the day before. Children being burnt alive. You know, when I was there, we would see children with gunshot wounds to their head and neck. I posted these videos. This was during the ceasefire. It's not me that's saying this. It's pretty much every doctor that's been has seen the same things.
Absolutely.
And, you know, sorry, just I'm sorry, I'm hogging the mic here, but you know, when I was, you know what really hits is when you go multiple times, right? Because when I was there in June 2024, and we had that mass casualty event, and we were just picking up bits of body and putting it into body bags, and then I arrived back almost a year later, and we were still picking up bodies and putting them in body bags, and I thought to myself, this has been going on like this for months, every day like this. Think about like how traumatized this population is. You know, I remember walking back to my room from the emergency department the night of the first, you know, when the ceasefire broke, and just the bodies everywhere, wrapped in white cloths as you walked. 7 bodies here, 10 bodies here, 8 bodies here, 9 bodies here. This one was just bodies, and it was just this big. These were children. There were people in plastic bags. And you see, there's a difference in Gaza, right? Of how you die is how you get wrapped up. If you die and you're in pieces, they put you in a plastic bag. If you die and you're in one piece, they wrap you in a white cloth. You see the difference, right? So every time I know when they bring someone in with a plastic bag, 7 times out of 10, I know if I open it, it's going to be just a very mutilated body, or it's just going to be flesh, unrecognizable flesh. These are the kind of systems that you have in Gaza. And when you go there and you see this, and you see people arguing on TV whether they want to call it a genocide or not, or whether they want to say whether it's starvation, I don't accept having conversation on those terms anymore. And I don't think anyone else in here should accept having these conversations on this term anymore. Right now, we are witnessing, like you said, a turning point in history. We are witnessing a live-streamed, not just genocide, it's a Holocaust. When you destroy, you know, when we were there, sorry to go on.
We're going to go to a video and we're going to come back as a panel again.
Sorry.
So can I just get you to hold that thought?
Sorry, I got carried away, guys.
I know, it's very hard not to get carried away about this topic.
But let's return to the second round of the conversation, building on the stories, reflections and emotions that have just been shared. Over to you, Kim.
Okay, thank you. That just prompted me to think, tell us how hard it was to leave, the day you had to leave. You shared some of that on the video, yeah?
Yeah, so it was very difficult. It was very difficult because you know that 4 weeks is usually not enough to do much, and you're not a superhero, and the demands are huge, like really huge, and I kept saying that, you know, like very advanced medical systems will be struggling to manage the trauma that happens every day in your emergency department. Like, and I did label it as, it's as if you have Christchurch massacre happening in your department every day in the week or every second day. And just tell me any health system in the world would be able to manage this. No. So when I was there, I was like having the guilt that, you know, we could have saved this. You know, in other scenario, this child would be saved, or this mom, or and you feel always this guilt that you're gonna leave this in few weeks and you go back to your comfort zone where you have a privileged house and salary and your kids are safe and having a warm bed and so on, and the other people they still be suffering this, and the level of their rights, even if they go back before all this war happened, will be unimaginable to live in this Gaza before this war, and we need to remember that. Our target is not to go back to where we were, and we need to use this moment is to go back and just get the root cause and solve it, because otherwise this violence will keep repeating, and the answer to this is not to send more doctors, because if we have the solution, we will pick the solution to stop this from happening again.
So have you been in touch with any of the people that you worked with since you've come home?
Daily.
Yeah.
They send me all kind of messages. It's sometimes about things that I told them I will be providing in terms of guidelines and some access to some database, and some they ask for recommendation letters that they deserve, to be honest. I've seen some medical students, they're working as trauma experts. I had a student by the name of Muhammad, a medical student, year 5, not even year 6, and he was making decisions about the priorities for a significantly injured patient. So he wanted, and I said, it's an honor for me to provide this to you. And so I will always be in touch with them. I will be going back to Gaza, hopefully in a better scenario. And even if this doesn't happen, we'll still go, because again, as you said, once you're Gaza, you will always go there.
Never leaves you. We've got to be there for the recovery, and that's people with that prior knowledge are going to be quite critical in that. Sally, have you got a story about keeping in contact?
I do, and I think like all of us, we've made such important personal connections that I am regularly in contact on WhatsApp all the time. But I might, if I may, just go back to the question about what surprised me. I think, like Dr. Aziz, I'd prepared myself for the worst. I had my affairs in order. I said the things I needed to say. And I'd seen everything on social media. I'd seen the rubble, the horror, the destruction, the death. And so in many ways I was prepared for that, and I have worked in war zones and conflict zones before and natural disasters, so there was a familiarity to what I saw and what I expected. But when I was working there, daily, and staff would turn up, the team would turn up to the office every day, beautifully dressed, very professional, always composed. And every single day, within the day, there was some joy that was found, or there was some humour that was shared, and there was a generosity that was always ongoing. And working with those individuals in those circumstances, with 70% of the 270 staff that were in our team having come from the north and 50% of the staff in tents, to be able to turn up and show up every day with such incredible professionalism and composure, as I said, was really quite remarkable. And then from a social community point of view, again, what I didn't know and what we hadn't seen so much were the living conditions that everybody was living in. And I was in Al Mawassi, which was the so-called humanitarian zone, which of course was not safe at all. But for as far as the eye could see, everybody was in tents made up of whatever they could find, whether it was, scraps of cardboard, bits of plastic, torn bits of cloth, with no running water, no sewerage, no education system, an intentionally decimated health system. And when I was there in October, winter was coming, and that was cold and wind and a lot of rain. So there was a fear about that. And so the pressures on the community were immense. It was the living conditions, it was the ongoing surveillance and military activity, It was the concern around winter. It was the siege with limited food, virtually no medical supplies coming in. Growing levels of criminality, which is not surprising, but even with that, the cohesion of the community was remarkable. They did not fold, which is what the Israelis wanted. Pressure upon pressure on pressure, they would crumble inside and turn on themselves, and not once did you really see that. And I think that is absolutely remarkable, the social cohesion that was maintained and the collective care that you would see every day for each other, as I think Dr. Aziz said. So for me, and I work, as I said, I've worked with MSF before, I work in the domestic family sexual violence sector. I have long thought that as a species, the human race is fundamentally and at its core a violent species. But what I saw was counterintuitive, and what surprised me with Gaza was, in fact, it was a life-affirming experience, because what shone so brightly was the humanity of the Palestinians. And that gives us all hope, I think. And Aziz, when you spoke at the rally, you said something like this, and I truly agree with it. One of our rally cries, one of our rally chants is, "We are all Palestinian." And I believe if only that were true, we would be in a much better place altogether, because that's what shone.
Yeah.
And so to stay in connection with the people that I met is truly a privilege, and again just brings hope to the devastation, because the people are truly remarkable, truly. Yeah.
And they ain't going anywhere.
No, they're not.
Dr. Bamani, Aziz, I was just wondering, have you thought about whether you would go back, and have you kept in contact with people that you worked with too?
Yeah, no, like the others, I mean, we're on sort of daily WhatsApps, and you get to hear about, unfortunately, the atrocities before anyone else hears about them. And it's sad, because the difficulty is, how do you say, how are you?
I know.
Are you okay?
Are you alive?
Right? That's really it. Are you still breathing? Because what does how are you mean? Right? What does are you okay mean? Because how is anyone okay? So in regards to going back, yes and no, right? Yes, because my heart wants to go back. Yes, because my heart wants to help. Yes, for all those reasons, but I'm still scared. But yes, I would go back.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dr. Mo, I'm wondering, how has your experience in Gaza, those 2 visits, how do you think it's changed your trajectory as a trainee doctor? Where do you think you want to go from here?
Well, you know, ever since I was a young boy, I always wanted to help as a doctor. That's why I chose emergency medicine. I always wanted to be on the front line when anything ever happened, because, you know, I grew up as a refugee. I grew up with this chip on my shoulder, knowing the injustices that was going on with Palestine, and I wanted to be a force of good in the world. That's always what I wanted to be since I was a kid, and that's why and my father is the leading fertility specialist in the whole UK, and he was a refugee from Gaza who didn't own a pair of shoes till he was 15 years old. So, he was my hero. I looked up to him so much, and I wanted to be like my dad. But not gynecology, because that grosses me out a little bit. But, I wanted to be like him, but not like him at the same time. Man, I just lost my train of thought there for a sec. Just thinking how gross, honestly. It's my mum, how she copes all those years. But look, what was the question? Sorry.
How will it change what you're going to do in the future?
It's not going to change what I want to do in the future. This is always what I wanted to do, And when I was there, I felt like, yep, I'm here. And I think what helped me was the fact that I was surrounded by, my people, the people of Gaza. And, there was such a love for me because, they would ask me my name, and I'd give them my family last name, and I'd say it's Bhersi. And you see, my tribe is the largest tribe in Deir el-Belah. Everybody knows our tribe. So when I say من عيلة البحيرسي, they go, أنت بحيرسي? Oh my God, and they start hugging. We married into the family, or cousin married. And instantly there's just this love, and they're like, oh, come, and I just had this love of these people. And one thing that really struck was actually it was the first time I met my family in Gaza. The first ever time I met my family. And it was the first time I ever met my uncle, who's my dad's brother, and my auntie. And this was the first time I went. They came when I was working at NASA Hospital, and NASA Hospital is jam-packed. There's like 1,500 presentations a day. You're working in the ED. Were you there as well? It's just crazy, isn't it, right? Absolutely. People fainting in the waiting room. It was just chaos, right? And behind the counter, I get a tap on my shoulder, and I look back, and I see this guy, and he's bigger than me. And I'm like, and this was back in June, and I'm like, who's this guy that's bigger than me? This is a war, Jesus Christ. And then I look back, and then I look behind him, and it's my uncle that's behind him. They came all the way to NASA Hospital to come see me. This was during the drones overhead, and they walked, him and my two cousins, to come see me, and we just hugged right in the middle of the ER, me and my cousin. That was the first time I ever met him. And, it was such a scene because he started hugging me. My uncle came over and started hugging me. And then, when I said to them, they said, look, we'll wait for you. We know how busy you are. You go help the people. We'll be outside waiting for you when you have a break. And, people were asking me. They were like, going, who is that? I was like, that's my uncle. That's the first time I've ever met my uncle. When I was, like, when you experience that, when you go there, like seeing your family for the first time, and, we spent Eid together, because it was Eid when I was there, and that was, I've never been to Eid with my family before. It's always been my immediate family, not my, my uncles and aunties. So when I went to my uncle's house, the whole family came to visit me the first night that I arrived and stayed at his house. Obviously, you're not allowed to stay there, but fuck it. I thought I'm going to stay there anyway, right? So I remember when I was there, and literally the whole family came to come see me, and I was just greeted by dozens and dozens of cousins, uncles. And you know what was the craziest thing about it? They came and they bought their photo albums, right? And in the photo albums, there was pictures of my mum and dad's wedding. Some of them had been there at my mum and dad's wedding, and they gave me, one of my dad's cousins, he gave me a photo of my mum and dad at their wedding day, my mum in her bridal dress. And he said, give this to your mum and dad. And when I was there, my mum's dad, my granddad, he was really ill in Jordan. And there was a picture of him that they also had kept as well. And this is a bit personal here, but when I left Gaza and I went to Jordan, 2 days after I left and I arrived back in Australia, my granddad passed away in Jordan. And I couldn't fly back to Jordan because I was on the campaign trail trying to raise awareness for what was going on in Gaza. It was really difficult for me. Obviously, I didn't tell anybody, but my mum and everyone flew back to go be there and see my granddad. And I remember when I handed her over the picture of my granddad when he was young, and she started crying because that was her father. She'd never seen that photo before. But this is what I mean about Gaza and how unique it is. I didn't even realize the amount of history that my family has there, the connection that we have there, the photos that are there. And they would all come and show me these, and they would show me photos when I was a little kid, because they used to come to, because I was born in Mecca, they used to come to Mecca and see me there. And I remember just thinking, this is, there's a whole family that I've never even met, a whole family that I was never allowed to see. Not allowed to see. In a home that I'm never allowed to enter. And, I remember on Eid, my cousin, sorry for taking up all your time, guys.
I'm going to curb you in a minute, because I've got some key questions to ask everyone. Yeah.
Sorry about this, guys. But look, just one more little story, right? This is about how unique Gaza is. On Eid, I don't know if you saw, but I put a picture up of me wearing the Palestinian keffiyeh on my head. That was my granddad's keffiyeh, who died in Gaza. And they gave me that as a gift on Eid. And I remember smelling it and thinking to myself, wow, it's my granddad. You know, and I gave that to my father, who's his dad, because he wasn't allowed into Gaza when his dad died. And he wasn't allowed into Egypt when his mother died, because he was a Palestinian refugee. So when I was born, even though he grew up in Egypt, and he went to university, same university that you went to, Qahira, and he became a doctor there, and he grew up there, and his mother was there dying, and he was in Saudi Arabia, he wasn't allowed to go back, and his mother was in a deathbed, and his mother died. And I remember the first time I ever saw my...
I'm trying to...
First time I ever saw...
Okay, you've got to stop now.
I'll just give you one more thing. The first time I ever saw my dad cry was when we got our British passports. We went to Egypt, and he went to go see his mother's grave for the first time. And I remember I was only a young boy, but I remember when we went and saw my grandma's grave, and he cried the first time. And this is a stoic man. And I just remember thinking, like, this is what it is to be a Palestinian, you know, to live life like this, to be depraved of, basic rights. That's what it is to be a Palestinian. So, sorry for telling you all these stories, guys.
So, Asala, do you want to speak to that generational trauma of Palestinians being denied carriage around the world, even going back to their place of birth, of people not being able to live family life? Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. There's 2 points that I'd like to actually make, which is, number one, is that unfortunately in the Western world, there's a tendency to define what professionalism is. And I have faced that, you know, when I was back at uni and I had discovered that there was something called international placement. I had proposed to them I'd like to do my placement in Palestine. They declined because one of the reasons was that they thought that social work was not an established profession. So from the reflections that have been shared today, you know, it just brought back the fact or the point that I had recognised, and I put in a publication actually to the end of my course, that the practice of being a doctor, the practice of being an emergency respondent or a counsellor or a mental health clinician is not defined by how the West sees professionalism. Because when you practice in Palestine, it is a different type of practice because the context defines how you practice. And this is really important because trauma, speaking about trauma, and as the reflections that have been shared by Dr. Mo, actually, it brings to the eye that when you are a Palestinian in the diaspora, you are not disconnected from home. And there's been many attempts to restrict Palestinians going back home. And I say that because I, as a Palestinian from the West Bank, you know, I cannot enter Gaza.
No, that's
because
right.
I have a green ID.
Yeah.
So that disconnection or the geographical disconnection is a tactic that is used to define or try to shape the life of a Palestinian, whether you are in Palestine or whether you are in the diaspora. But the Israeli occupation, despite the numerous attempts of causing that continuous trauma, there is something sacred that is in the land of Palestine that calls not only Palestinians, it calls every single human being. And I say this because the amount of volunteers that I've met in the West Bank or people that have been to Gaza, they actually say there is a call over there. And when we go to Palestine, and I really want to make this clear, and a reminder to myself first, and I made this reflection at a young age, we are not going there to save them. They do not need to be saved. They are the experts of their lives. They get to dictate what freedom looks like. They get to dictate what liberation means. Because life under occupation, in every inch of that soil, is not like any life in any other part of the world.
Yes, excellent point.
And I share that context. Because it takes me to trauma. Trauma is not just a word. Trauma is not just a diagnosis. Trauma becomes life. It becomes how you begin to experience your mind, your body, and your soul. Intergenerational trauma, interestingly, even if you have not been to Palestine or faced any form of trauma there directly, intergenerational trauma is passed through 6 generations. So if I was to have kids in the future, this trauma may be possibly passed down to my kids because of the intergenerational trauma that exists. And when I am addressing trauma, not only with people who have sought refuge in Palestine, trauma has led me actually to design a mental health program that I envision it to become a travelling program in every single refugee camp in this world. The consequences of the occupation are not only in the last 19 months. So those young children and youth that are living in refugee camps, which we call a global Palestinian diaspora, are facing consequences due to the occupation, because you cannot depoliticize trauma for a Palestinian. Going into, so basically at the beginning of this year, I came back from Jordan. I was piloting a mental health program, but I decided to not get a program that was ready and apply it to my people. I will not get a Western program that defines trauma and apply it to my people. I approached it from a decolonial, because this is colonialism. This is a consequence of colonialism. Plus, studying the context. So that program, and I will say that program, they gave me, I came out from that program more than I gave them. And the level of censorship that you will face in any country that you go. I was in Jordan. I had to redesign the outline of the program and remove Palestine from the program just to get into the camp. But as soon as you get into the camp, what was it? Free Palestine. So trauma is unique to every single person. And to address trauma, it needs to be done in a culturally sensitive, a decolonial, and also at times a faith-based approach. Because something that has not been mentioned is that faith, for a large majority of Palestinians, is the backbone to why they are standing until this day.
Yeah, true. Thank you, Asala. We're going to come to the end of this panel. What I'd like is some reflections about what you'd like to ask the Australian government to do. What they haven't done so far and what you might suggest they might like to do. Certainly the sand is shifting quite fast at the moment. I think it's a golden opportunity for us to be much more specific about what we want them to do. So have we got any messages from the panel members about what you'd like to see?
So I think maybe you might have seen that I'm on the campaign trail trying to get an Australian hospital into Gaza. Look, the idea of a hospital, it's not just about helping these children in Gaza. I also think it's about the trauma of our society here in Australia. You know, when you look on the TV screens and you see children every day with their heads missing, burnt alive, and you flick through or you scroll past, that dehumanizes part of you as well, because you're no longer affected by seeing children that are dead. And we as a society, not just in Australia, but all around the world, have become dehumanized because of what's happened in Gaza. A part of our own humanity has gone away. And in order for us to be humanized again, we need to humanize these children again. And to humanize these children, we need to heal these children. And that's why I think it's important that we have this hospital in Gaza and we have Australian doctors there and Australian cameras there, because then we humanize those children, we can humanize ourselves, and as a society, we can recover, because there's so much tension right now in Australia between different communities because of what's happened in Gaza. And I feel like if we were to rally around the humanity of children and the humanity of those kids in Gaza and get that children's hospital in Gaza and build bridges between communities. You know, I've gone and I've approached the Jewish Council and the Jewish community, and I've told them about my idea, and they love it, and they want to help fundraise for it. And I've spoken to the Muslim community, I've spoken to the indigenous community, I've spoken to students. So many people want to campaign and fundraise for this hospital, and I think that's part of the healing process. Part of the healing process is bringing the Muslim community and the Jewish community together, is bringing the indigenous community together, the students together, and everyone working towards a goal. It's this hospital. You can't argue about the humanity of children. You can't argue about saving the children. And if you do, that says more about you than it does anything else. And that's my campaign. That's why I'm out on the road every day doing talks like this, traveling around the country, because we want to get this hospital into Gaza. I don't want the government just to throw more money at big organizations and us not see physical change on the ground. I want there to be doctors like these guys here, you know, treating the sick in Gaza, where we see Australians there treating the sick, healing these children, where we get to hear the stories of these children, and it brings life back to our society. It brings bridges back between who we are as people, who we are as Australians. And, you know...
We've got to move on to a couple of other people now. Sally, before we get to that point, what do we think we need to tell the government right now?
A lot.
Yeah.
And I would say first and foremost to grow a spine. I mentioned before, you either act on your principles or you don't, and they're not acting on anything. And for me, that makes them valueless and principle-less. It's not a complex question. It's very simple. You're either against genocide or you are not. You're either against the occupation or you are not. You're either against apartheid or you are not. So stand up for what is right, and very first, stop the two-way arms trade.
Yep.
We buy $2 billion worth of Israeli defence industrial
technology,
machine.
yeah.
$2 billion a year. That is just unbelievable. So stop the two-way trade. Call for sanctions. Act as though this is what is important, because it is the defining moment of the government, of our time, and of our country. Yeah.
Dr. Aziz, what would you say to, if you had the opportunity to tell them what they might catch up on?
A lot like Sally said, but we've got to ask them to stand by international law.
Yeah.
Right? That's all this is. It's standing by international law. The United Nations, the highest courts in the land, have said Israel is committing apartheid. That's without doubt. They said, essentially, we think you're committing genocide, but we need some more evidence. But every genocide scholar out there says you're committing genocide. So let's sanction them. Let's do what we would do with any other state that would do this. We did this with Russia. This is the funny part, right? We banned the oligarchs, we stopped their money, we froze their money, we stopped trading, we banned them from the Olympics.
Yep.
What's the difference? Because it's literally 12 months later, we see a genocide being carried out, but none of the same actions.
No, I know. It's very, very disappointing. Dr. Amon, have you got a message you'd like to give them?
Look, I don't believe politicians, as we speak, currently about the politicians who are elected in a way that not representative of the people, so much behind the scene, how they came about to be politicians, and that's why I'm actually probably I need to speak to the people, and I think the cultural domain, the media, the intellectuals. That's probably my message to them, is that look, there's so much pressure on intellectuals to produce, new thoughts, and they are framed somehow. But this is the time. Yep. This is the time, the crucial time. Already you missed 1.5 years of this genocide, and you already been, blacklisted at this stage in the history books. Maybe it's probably a chance now with the wave it's changing, the world is changing, the power dynamics in the world is changing. Now probably the time to start, go back and see how this started all, like from the scratch. You need to go back to the roots, from bottom up, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Like this was from day one, was like a demographic engineering project, very nasty, caused so much people displacement, and so much harm and injury and trauma that it's, it's still, every now and then will lead to this kind of like a significant violence that the world has now started to think is not going to happen again in this world. So it's still happening. Why at that scale? Because you go back to the root, and the intellectuals, the cultural domains are the ones who will lead the change. Politicians will just follow. Yeah. That's why I'm not interested to speak to any politician. I'm sorry, I'm just a contrast.
It's pretty hard work, I can tell you.
But what you're doing is a magnificent job, lobbying with the politicians. We have new politicians probably will, represent us better. But to be honest, I think the change will come from the grassroots. The change will come from the people mobilizing and make a change.
Thank you. Asala, what would you like to say to them?
Something that I'd like to say is that to create change on an individual level, we've shared experiences of people and what they have been through. You cannot create change on an individual level without creating change on a structural level. That's number one. Number two, I'm a firm believer and a strong believer that the solution is to dismantle the settler colony of the illegal state of Israel. We are not looking for short-term solutions, for a band-aid solution. Of course, we need recovery and healing. I am with that. But until when? Until when are we going to get too comfortable and say, perhaps we need this and we need this? We are not pleading for them to be existing on that land, because we existed on that land and we do not need their approval to continue to exist on that land. So bringing it back to the political dynamic in this country, the Labour government has failed. It has failed, not only the Palestinian people, but its own people. Albanese has got too comfortable to change the rhetoric and think that we cannot see through his whistle words. Why has the rhetoric changed?
Because the rest of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in every second, there is a child who's being killed. There is a child who's being martyred, I should say. It is only, and I know there's different opinions on strategies and how can we get there, but I will say that there must be an end to the Israeli occupation from the river to the sea.
Okay, that is the panel coming to an end. We've got some suggestions about things that people can look to do which we're going to cover. Oh, yeah, sorry. We will give you some suggestions about things you can do before you leave tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, we now open the floor to questions and answers from the panel. This is a chance to engage directly with the panel and ask questions and reflect together. If you have any question, please raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you.
We'll start with the wonderful Lena.
Thank you so much for all of that. It's very, very touching, and we all feel inspired, I'm sure, to go to Gaza. I do. Wish I can do it. I may do so yet. I do have a question, though, and you talked about fear and confrontation with violence, etc. How did you survive? How did you survive physically, mentally, and emotionally?
Do you want me to answer that one? So look, the way that I survived was quite simple. I'm not more precious and my blood is not more worthy than those people in Gaza. And, you know, if they can endure this, then I can endure this as well. We're all the same. So, to me, and this is just me speaking for me, to me, it didn't matter what happened to me when I was in Gaza. You know, I was proud to be amongst those people and how compassionate they are and their humanity. And I felt like it would be an honor if I was to die amongst them during this. So for me, there was no dealing with anything. Like I say, I was going out in the morning market and, you know, haggling for tomatoes and potatoes with everyone and buying falafel sandwiches for the crew. To me, I was just there with them. I was there with them and I was there all the way till the end, no matter what happened.
It's not about, you know, surviving there, because I cannot imagine what it may feel like to be able to survive there. But what I can say is that it's natural to feel fear. It's okay to feel fear. And it's okay to feel hopeless, because what makes us different is that we feel. But a way is that there's the cognitive side of things on which how one can know how to manage that fear, where you distinct between the feeling and the behavior. So the way that I've personally processed that fear, even to go back home, or even that feeling of helplessness, is by telling my brain, Asala, it's okay to be fearful, it's okay to be helpless, but you will not be helpless and you will not be fearless. So what makes us different is that we feel. And we must be in spaces like that to know how to heal from those emotions, whether it's we're committed to the cause here or back in Palestine.
We'll take one more question.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for everything that you've done and that you are doing, and for, you know, educating us, inspiring all of us who are here tonight. I just wanted to ask, and this just kind of came to mind when I was donating blood the other week, but what are they doing as far as, you know, blood supply, just thinking that there's not access to basic supplies?
Yeah, the good thing is I did ask this question because I can see the population quite traumatized, malnourished, and I did ask this question. We have a very good supply of blood products, especially, and fortunately, there's neighbor countries. I think the Red Crescent, Red Cross. I had a significant shortage of other medications, like the basic, even the antibiotics, the painkillers, so on. But I never had an issue with at least in my El Shifa hospital, which is a major ED there. And at least in my experience, they told me the blood supply from the other organization were quite generous. So at least something is positive.
We used to donate blood when we were there as well. And yeah, I got very lightheaded and fainted after I donated blood, so I don't like to tell that story. But yeah, everyone that goes to Gaza donates blood.
Yeah, just answer a question from this side about the fear. And don't get me wrong, it's not an easy experience, and you know, but I need to tell you that as doctors, we were the safest. As missions, we were the safest in Gaza. So like from foreign missions, I mean. Okay, so the whereabouts of doctors coming from, especially Western countries, the whereabouts will be deconflicted. And I can tell you that the local doctors and like health professionals, they will feel safe that we are around, and they will tell you that, which is sad because you feel like, you know, how come, you know, other doctors, different nationality have different safety arrangements. But still, we are still vulnerable to, I'm telling you my personal experience, like after 3 weeks of whatever we managed to get as food, we ran out of food and the crisis of food access and stuff. So I myself got, you know, deconditioned, and I got, for the first time in my life, I got pneumonia, and you know, till now I'm still feel deconditioned, tired. But again, as Asala said, you know, you know it's not an easy thing, but you prepare for it mentally, physically, and the perseverance will let you back to your you know, because you have a cause that is making you strong.
Any more questions?
Oh, Auntie Barb.
Thank you. Hello. Look, it's not really a question. It's just a little bit of an observation and a bit of comparison. Mustafa, you had a wonderful vision of having an Australian hospital in Gaza, and I'd applaud that. I hope you can pull it off, because this country, successive governments in this country, I don't know how you're going to get them to do it when they can't put a registered nurse in a clinic in remote Aboriginal communities. Right.
I feel very strongly about that. I actually was working in the Kimberleys the last 4 weeks when I got back from Gaza, doing things remotely with regards to planning this hospital and everything like that. I know how understaffed, underappreciated rural communities are, and especially Indigenous communities as well. And yeah, there always is that turmoil in my head of like, we don't even respect Indigenous people here. How are we going to respect Indigenous people in other parts of the world? But this is what this is about. We're going to change all of this. And this hospital is, look, this hospital isn't about the physical structure. It's about what it represents, you know. The Middle East has enough bombs, and it has enough killing, and it has enough Western countries sanctioning it and bombing it and killing its children. This changes the psyche of the Middle East. This changes the psyche of the West when we have Australian doctors, white doctors, going and healing children, not killing them with sanctions. This is what this change will make. It's about changing the minds and the hearts of the population. So my mission isn't just about this hospital, and that's what people get caught up in. They think that I'm just trying to get a physical structure into Gaza. I'm trying to win hearts and minds around the country. I have not stopped. You know, we drove here from Canberra, me and Matu, we drove here from Canberra. We're a two-man team. It's all you see, everything that you've seen from the design plans that we got. We've spoken to foreign government officials already. We've spoken with different aid organizations. We have done so much in so little time because there is an appetite in this country. People want to see something done. And what we're doing is we are riding that wave of momentum, and we want to get something done. And if we can get this done, this changes the conversation of how we talk about Indigenous people. It changes the conversation of how we talk about healthcare, and it changes the conversation of how we talk about Gaza and Palestine. And that's what this is about. This is about This is about the children, and it's about healing us first as a society. I want to bring society together to unite over this hospital, because once we do this for Gaza, this will have a ripple effect, I hope, throughout the world.
Sally, you wanted to...
Is that, yeah. I just wanted to respond to your question over there about how we look after ourselves. And I think it was one thing being in Gaza and the challenges there, but it's also when you come back and you know that you have stories that you're obliged to tell, that you have a responsibility to tell. And to that end, I just want to recognise how important community is. I came back to a close community with, Safar and Yossa and Jet, my good friends Yakov and Therese and Natalie and Kim, and was able to share that. But what's also really important is the growing community engagement, and all of you coming out tonight, 180 in 10 days, is absolutely encouraging for us to tell our stories, to know stories are being listened to, but also telling our friends back and family back in Gaza that this is what is happening in Australia, and don't underestimate the power of showing up. I think it's just so important. Thank you.
We're going to take the last question, and then we're going to wrap up the question and answer part.
Mo, I have a question to you. You mentioned that you had Eid there.
Yes.
So every time there is something special here, and we celebrating, I think about Gaza people. How was the feeling of other people? Like, you had family there, but how the other people celebrate?
Do you know, it was a difficult day, Eid. I mean, it was a beautiful day. It was also a difficult day because I think you all saw the images of that young girl who was wearing her Eid clothes that was killed. And, that's what it was. Bombs were going off and people were dying. And it's a tradition in Eid, as you know, that you visit family. And I have a large family in Deir el-Belah. So I was at my uncle's house and we walked around Deir el-Belah and visited, usually the men, we go visit the women of the thing, and we were going around every single house, knocking on doors, visiting, and you could hear the drones overhead and you could hear the bombs overhead, but children were still outside playing on the streets. People were still living their lives, even though these children were being killed in their Eid clothes, and some of them had in their hands when they died, had their Eid money, their gifts that they had. When I finished going around and seeing family in the morning, I went to work that day and we were dealing with mass casualty events on Eid. So, it was a beautiful day for me because I got to experience Eid in Gaza and I got to experience Eid with my family, and I got to joke around with my auntie and my uncles, and, but at the same time, it was the reality of war. But this is again what I mean about Gaza. You live as a Palestinian between hope and despair. They were living in hope of Eid, and they were living in despair at the bombs falling around them. But that's what it is to be Palestinian. That's part of the resistance as well. And this is what I mean about, being a bit crazy and thinking I can get this done with regards to this hospital. Hope I can get it done. Despair in the politicians. But we can get this done.
Thank you, everyone. It's now time to shift our focus to action, because listening is very powerful, but acting is essential. You'll see May Fahmy. She's going to distribute some pamphlets around. You want to start?
Should we?
So as health professionals and community members, each of us has a role to play, right? There are many ways we can channel our energy into meaningful solidarity, nationally, internationally, and locally. We'd now like to invite someone very special, a guest, Dr. Ziad Bassiouni, to the microphone. Dr. Ziad is a pro-Palestinian doctor from Sydney who recently ran as an independent candidate in the federal seat of Watson, challenging Labour frontbencher Tony Burke on his party's stance on Palestine. Please welcome Ziad Bassiouni. Yes.
It's a very humbling experience to listen to all of you. I thought elections was humbling. Not at all. Just listening was humbling. And it's probably very hard for me to say a lot after what you guys have said. I'm an Egyptian doctor. Same. We Egyptians have a unique relationship to Gaza. People who don't know, Egypt lost Gaza in 1967. It used to be a part of, well, not a part, but it used to be under the direction of Egypt up to 1967, and then Egypt lost it. PANSMA offered me to go on the first trip to Gaza, but Egypt stopped me. I've always been a rebel since I was in Egypt. I moved from Egypt 21 years ago, and I literally left because the government was corrupt and I couldn't say what I thought. Freedom is a big thing in my life, and if I can't have a freedom of association and political opinion, I can't live there. So I decided to move, and I was given a chance to live in Australia, which I was very grateful for. Tried to get a pass through Egypt to Gaza. When PANSMA started, I was neglected. I couldn't get it. If I attended Egypt, it would probably be confiscated, maybe never to be seen again. That happens in Egypt still. I've always thought that direct action is the best way. I'm very pragmatic in general. I never thought that demonstrations will make a difference. Marches, well, why are we marching for? And then you see a Labour government, state government, trying to stop the marches. Well, they wouldn't stop the marches if it's creating a problem. Okay, well, it's not really my small Pepsi that I'm drinking that is going to make a big difference. Starbucks is closing in Jordan and Kuwait because of boycott. Well, something must be wrong in how I think about things. Obviously, my pragmatism is not working. And then there was the chance to speak to politicians. Politicians do not care about anything other than their jobs. They really don't care about anything else. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone. If we want politicians to hear, then you need to stand up and show them that you will threaten their jobs. Inviting them for events or having pictures or that doesn't work. It's nice. The food is great. I might miss the food next year, but I've still got my job. There's a couple of interesting points that I want to tell you about. All what you've heard today was talking about pre-planned, designed concentration camp. Now, I want you all not to get angry at me for what I'm about to do in the next 10 seconds, but I just want you to listen. Israel had to answer the Palestinian question. Who are these guys? How can we deal with them? It's a question. They can't continue to have Israel without dealing with that question. Now I'm going to turn into an Israeli-minded politician, so I apologize. There's only 4 ways to deal with that. The 5th way we all agree on, which is the resistance. So in an Israeli politician, there's only 4 ways. Number 1, one-state solution. They will not accept. They will not let Palestinians be normal citizens and have normal rights. They wouldn't do that. Because basically you would have Michael, who's a Palestinian Christian, or Muhammad, who's a Palestinian Muslim, that potentially can be the Prime Minister. There'll be 50% Palestinians and 50% Israelis. So they wouldn't allow that. The second way would be a 2-state solution. Israel killed the 2-state solution. last year, if you guys can't remember, Biden said, well, that was about 18 months ago, Biden said, Netanyahu never said he doesn't want a two-state solution. Netanyahu went on Twitter and wrote down, we need peace and security east of the river, which means we can't have a Palestinian state. It's a clear statement from Netanyahu. There's nothing. They killed it. Number 3 is what they have now, which is the apartheid state. Number 4 is ethnic cleansing, which is what they've tried to do by having a genocide. And I do agree with what Mo have said. If someone cannot recognize that it's a genocide, don't waste your time. You don't need a lot of proof. The video that was aired at the start had bullets into dialysis machines. No antibiotics getting through. Starvation of the whole population. That's not looking for hostages. The idea of defeating Hamas or removing Hamas or getting the hostage back is only a red herring. It's a smokescreen for ethnic cleansing through a genocide. So that's why it was pre-planned. That's why those schools, hospitals, that's why, as Dr. Aziz had said, they give you the hope and they take it out. It's not that they want to give you hope. They want to kill any chance of hope in your mind, so you decide to leave. That's the whole idea, so they can answer the Palestinian question. So that's number 1. Number 2, and I'm not going to take too much of your time, if you get questioned about the war in Gaza, do not get drawn into the trap of defending. Remind them of what happened nearly 80 years ago. This is only a scene out of a movie that's been running since 1940s. We just didn't see the Nakba. We just didn't see it. There was no TVs around there. There was no social media. It was probably worse. Well, I can't tell. I don't know. But it drove millions and millions. Your dad and your family was a part of it. Out. Remember the history. This is how they will talk to you about. They'll always say, but Hamas did. For all of you who know APRA, for all of you who knows the HCCC, they've investigated me 4 times during my campaign. Just fine, it's a normal thing. I raise my hand to be a potential politician. There will be scrutiny and people will put complaints against me. I support the resistance. The international law supports the resistance. If your issue is with the resistance, your issue is with the international law. Please. Part of your action is to pressure the politicians. And if you cannot do it, find someone that will do it on your behalf. Labour is pretty lucky. They have an over 90 seats majority, over 20 seats majority in the lower house. There's no more Dutton. The coalition had a divorce a couple of weeks ago. Yes, they're back now, but they had a divorce 2 weeks ago, and Labour did nothing. It was never about fear from Dutton or the coalition. It's literally lack of conviction. Since 2021, the recognition of a Palestinian state was a formal Labour policy on their platform. It's not a secret, it's in their platform since 2021. Why haven't they done it? Maybe it's Dutton, he's gone. Maybe because we can't get things through the lower house. They have 94 seats or maybe more. We will know. There's no more coalition. And guess what? The coalition is led by a lady that is a Friends of Palestine member of parliament. You can't get it any better than this. And Labour still wouldn't do anything because they're not scared. Last thing, we will have an election in 3 years. There is a chance we will still be talking about the same things in 3 years. I don't know. I'm hoping not. If you continue to vote the way you do, then you're a part of the problem, not a part of the solution. If they continue to use, are we going to change Medicare? Dutton's going to come back. Angus Taylor, who I presume will be the next one after they push Susan Lee out. Angus Taylor would be like Dutton. He'll be bad, so vote for us. The problem is not them. The problem is us. Again, it is a humbling experience to listen to all of that. But if there is no action that comes out of this, then the issue is literally us. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very much to Ziad Bassiouni. You ran an amazing campaign. We are almost wrapping up very quickly. We did invite Carol Berry and Alison Burns, but they declined to come today. However, Senator David Shoebridge has sent us a very short video, if you could bear with us. Thank you.
I'm David Shoebridge, a Green Senator, the party's Justice and Defence folks, and I really want to thank the Illawarra community, led by health professionals, coming together tonight to ask what should our government be doing, what should our communities be doing, what should each of us be doing in this critical moment in this appalling ongoing genocide in Gaza. I'm sorry I can't be with you tonight, but I just do want to thank all of you for coming together now. This is 18 months into this horrific, seemingly unending genocide against the people of Gaza, and we continue to see a sophisticated military force deliver this level of horror and killing on an unarmed civilian population. I can't believe the world is letting this happen. And our government keeps telling us that this is a faraway conflict and they have no power over that, and we fundamentally reject that. There are so many pressure points that our government can put on the state of Israel to bring them to the table, get an immediate ceasefire, get peace with justice. And I'll just name a couple of them now. Australia has an ongoing two-way military trade with Israel. We're buying the better part of $2 billion of Israeli weapons, many of them tested on the people of Gaza. We should say to Israel right now, those contracts are cancelled, and we will not be entering into further contracts with a government that uses its military for these kinds of horrific acts. We will not take part in an arms trade where the weapons are tested on the people of Gaza. We could cancel those contracts tomorrow. We will not send weapons parts, including the F-35 fighter jet parts, to Israel. And we could join with other countries who are saying this loudly and clearly, and citizens from around the globe who are trying to get this appalling trade to end. And we could not send entire weapons, as we saw in January of this year, into Israel to be tested by the Israeli Defence Force, weapons made in like Queanbeyan and Canberra in Australia. We could do that immediately and end the two-way arms trade, and it's our obligation under the Genocide Convention to do that. We could place clear sanctions on the state of Israel and stop sending materials such as aluminium, which we know is fed into the war industry. We place those sanctions on Russia to stop, to not be a part of supporting the Russian invasion of Ukraine. We should mirror those sanctions to ensure that no Australian industry, no Australian raw materials, no Australian commitment is part of the genocide in Gaza. And we should be placing sanctions on the extremist Netanyahu government. And those sanctions can be done under existing regimes, Magnitsky sanctions against the senior leadership. We could do this all in the next 24 hours if our government had the courage. And of course, that should also come with a very clear statement supporting the Palestinian state. So when our government says this is a faraway conflict and there's nothing our government can do, we know that they're gaslighting us. We know that this is not true. And the next occasion when we see, tear-filled, hollow words coming from our government without those kinds of actions that I've just outlined, well, the next occasion we see that, we'll see yet again the moral standing of this government, and with it the moral standing of Australia being diminished. When there is a genocide, you really only have one obligation, and it's to do what you're all doing tonight, to do what I know what many of us are trying to do in our work and our personal lives. We have an obligation to do everything we can to end it. Let's continue to do this together. Peace, peace with justice. Free Palestine.
Thank you, David Shoebridge. Really appreciate Green solidarity. Our last and final speaker for tonight is Jet Hunt, one of my very good friends, and she is one of the founding members of Wollongong Friends of Palestine.
So sorry. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here tonight. And thank you so much, everyone on the panel, for sharing your experiences. I think hearing and seeing some of the information that we've heard tonight and that many of us have been watching play out across our screens over the last 18 months can be incredibly disempowering and distressing, and it can feel so very far away. But what many of you might not know is that less than 8 minutes drive from where we're sitting right now, the Israeli Merkava tanks are being equipped with armoured steel. So Bisalloy Steels, less than 8 minutes drive from here, are the only producer of the kind of armoured steel that is required to equip tanks and armoured vehicles that decimate lives in the West Bank and across historic Palestine and in Gaza. And as Wollongong Friends of Palestine, we do many things. We organise weekly rallies, we organise community events, and many of us who are here tonight, have connected at some of these events. But we've also organised 6 incredibly successful community pickets of Bisalloy Steel, where we've been able to rob Bisalloy Steel of over close to 100 productive hours. By coming together, by blocking the factory gates, by refusing steel to exit or refusing workers to enter that steel factory, we are no longer bothering to ask governments to do things. Instead, we're taking the power into our own hands, and we are putting ourselves in the way of the flow of armoured steel to the Zionist entity. And we're doing this alongside people all over the world who are disrupting the flow of goods and capital to that Zionist entity. And by doing so, by all of us participating in the ways that we do and the ways that we can, we will absolutely bring down the Zionist entity. We are all a part of this very imminent collapse. But we do need your help. So if you have never been to a Wollongong Friends of Palestine rally, please do come along. Come to a meeting. We have open meetings regularly, and it's a really open democratic space where we decide what to do together, and our diversity of tactics and approaches is a strength. And finally, do come to a picket of Bisalloy. It is a direct action that you and anyone can take, and we are stronger together. Thank you so much.
Now that we've heard how we can use our voices and engage locally, we want to share with you some actions you can take right now, tonight. One of the key initiatives we're supporting is a national petition calling to immediately increase funding and logistical support to trusted humanitarian and medical organizations, and to demand an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Gaza, as well as the protection of medical workers and facilities in accordance with international humanitarian law. You'll see a slide now, maybe not. Do you have your paper? Yeah. So it has a QR code and key actions. Are we able to put it up, Labibas, or Kim can go through with them? There are also volunteers on the floor, yeah, with the QR code. They all have them. You can check the petition, and Kim can go through each of these points. The first one is the petition, sign the petition. Why is it so important, Kim?
Look, now's the critical time to just put that extra pressure on the federal government. There's a lot more people who've been sitting back and not signing anything or participating in this last push, but as a veteran of the anti-apartheid struggle and the Vietnam War, this is the moment. This is where mass community push right at the end, just when they're faltering and when they're trying to work out what their line is, signing petition, and new people who they've never seen before, because you will know that they look at all the names on those positions and they shed them, they compare them with their databases, so we need new people to sign petitions who don't usually sign petitions. So very important to make that last push and really get it out. We're not the only people doing this. There'll be lots more who are also doing petitions. They have to be read in Parliament. They have to be presented to Parliament. So it's actually quite a big move to actually get thousands of people, ordinary people like us, saying, we want you to do something. Get on with it now. And this is what we want you to do. So I'd like to let you know that we're having a candlelight vigil in Crown Street Mall, a silent vigil when Eat Street is happening, and we're going to have a whole lot of people pushing prams and other symbols of children, lost children. So we would really like, maybe you haven't been to a rally or a march, but you think you might like to come to a silent vigil when we've got a large population of people in Wollongong witnessing. We'd like you to come to that at Eat Street at 6 o'clock on the 12th of June. We're also planning to do silent candlelight vigils in other places, such as Berry. So Berry's actually offered to do a candlelight vigil on the 12th of June. The 18th of June, sorry. And we're starting to ask other towns to do it all the way down the coast. So the other things you can do are...
Learn about Panzima.
Learn about the organisation that actually helped these doctors go to Gaza. And we have some information at the back if you know or you yourself are interested to go as a medical professional to Gaza.
Lobby state and federal health ministers.
Yes, okay. So as health professionals, it's a new move to put the pressure on the health ministers, both the state and the federal minister, about what we're doing to actually practically help the health situation in Gaza. So we've harangued Penny, we've harangued Albo, we've done all of those. Let's put some pressure on some other ministers and actually get them to start taking some positions on Gaza.
Lobby local MPs.
Lobby local MPs. So we have been doing this for the last few years, and it's really important that we have some new, we try to have new faces each time. And look, it's a frustrating thing, but it's really important for Palestinians in this room and doctors who've been to Gaza to actually be part of those delegations, because the usual suspects don't get the same answers as you will.
Access resources, including templates.
Yes, so actually if you go to APAN, which is the Australian Palestine Advocacy Network. I was part of forming APAN 15 years ago, and it's an excellent place to go if you want to actually write a letter. They'll give you templates on that site to write a letter to anybody about the issue of Palestine. It's well organised, it's easy to access, it's actually a really good website if you want to take action in a hurry.
And lastly...
yes.
Follow Wollongong Friends of Palestine.
We'd also encourage you to boycott. Like, BDS is actually really quite an important move at the moment. Boycott's been happening for 15 years. When I was in Gaza, I actually met the boycott committee that first formed by Omar Bagouti, and he said, I'll never forget what he said. He said, this is the last peaceful action we have a choice to make here. And this is one we can involve millions of people around the world. So going and looking up boycott, divestment and sanctions will actually give you a whole lot of things that you will choose now to not buy or participate in or give your money to.
Yes.
And it has had a massive impact now. Like, I've been watching it for 15 years and
Very
I've been
powerful.
boycotting my little harm off, but now it's big game now. You know, it's whole countries boycotting and divesting. It's people stopping Netanyahu from being able to fly out of Tel Aviv, right? They won't let him fly over their airspace. This is where we really go to the next level of boycott. So it's
Thank you,
working.
Kim. Thank you to all the speakers on the panel. It was a pleasure to have you tonight. Thank you all for being here tonight. This evening has been filled with truth, unity, and action, and your presence is very, very powerful as a community. Thank you.
And we really appreciate the solidarity, the joint struggle, and what is Therese. And there's more food, so please go and help yourselves.
Please feel free to stay back and connect to each other, yeah? Thank you very much for tonight. Thank you.